Good morning. Let's see if I can get this thing propped up without having to slip around too much. Come on now. There we go. That should do okay. Maybe not, that lighter sliding. Son of a bitch. Similar to Gribbly. I like the pause button, but you can't pause live. But I don't really have enough memory to shoot a video that's longer than 4 or 5 minutes. So this is my best option for anything where I chat. What's today? It's Wednesday, October 17th, about 10:30 a.m. I had a very early start. I stayed at the lady's place, and she has to be up for work at like 5:30 to catch her trains, and so she was gone by about 6, and I slept in for a little bit longer. I was out of there about 7, caught my train and bus home. Did a little box opening earlier. It seems anytime I shoot a video, especially when I'm short on memory on my phone, I'm short on memory in my brain, and I always seem to forget something. I neglected to mention that one of the reasons I bought those pipes now was my girlfriend's family has this rule that after the girls' birthdays, you don't get to buy yourself anything nice again until after Christmas. So, hello viewer, thank you for joining. Just about to let myself a bowl of match nightcap in the Rossi 320. I was talking about a little bit of backstory that I missed on the video that I posted this morning. So there's a rule where after my girlfriend and her sister's birthdays, they don't get to buy anything nice for themselves until Christmas. And well, now that rule applies to me. So the sister just had her birthday. My girl's birthday is coming up in a couple of weeks. So I got my last hurrah and got myself those Molinas there, which one I'll be sending out to a friend. And so yeah, it just seems anytime I smoke an old dark fired, is that an Orlick blend? Or is that the McBaron HH series? I forget. I smoked an Orlick blend with Kentucky in it. Just once, though. I mean, this stuff, you know, I wouldn't say it tastes like Nightcap. It has some similar flavors, but on its own, by its own merits, it's a good English. Good English that doesn't want a light this morning. Oh, where'd it go? McBaron, yeah, okay. That's right. The thing about this wide bowl, this author bowl, is there's a lot of tobacco there on the surface. It takes a bit to get it all burning. Matt Ortiz, good morning to you, sir. What are you up to? Just enjoying the sun on this chilly morning. Just got out of work. Party. What kind of work are you in, Matt? There we go. So speaking of work, y'all might recall me talking about how I'm not real happy with my current employer. I work for a company that sterilizes medical supplies and food spices. That's an interesting combination. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if I've used a product. Kirk Maxon, 61, disabled vet, chilling in Florida. Right on. Are you in the part of Florida that's not getting its ass whooped, or at least hasn't gotten its ass whooped recently? A friend sent me a text the other day saying, hey, remember that restaurant we ate at when we went down to the beach a couple years ago? I'm like, yeah. I said, well, it's leveled. Got wiped on out. Nothing at all. Mostly, come on, show me the messages. Mostly medical, we do the spices more slow. Right on. That's an interesting blend, though, still. But yeah, my only time ever visiting beached area off of saltwater anyway was down the panhandle of Florida a few years ago, and this little restaurant we stopped and had dinner at the day we checked in, that place got wiped out. Toucans was the name of it. Cool little place. Just off of Cape San Blas. But back to employment. I've been bitching for months about what's been bothering me at my current job, and I said, the hell with it, and I started seeing what else was out there. And last week I sent out 4 resumes on Thursday night. Friday morning I had 2 responses, and then a scheduled interview for yesterday at a wine bar, pretty far north, at least from where I'm at. It was a good hour and a half commute. So, if I did end up going there in the future, that would be kind of a pain. But I met the head chef, and I spoke with her for about 15-20 minutes. It went all right. Maybe not as well as I had hoped or I had seen in my head. She looked over my resume a bit. I showed her some of my certifications that I have, and her first question is, so you're managing this kitchen, right? I said, yeah. What's your food cost? I don't know. I was never taught or trained how to calculate that. She says, so I'm guessing you probably don't know your labor cost either. I said, nope. Don't know how to calculate that either. Was never taught, told, or trained. Everything we do runs out of this computer program, They monitor this stuff downstairs. Do you manage a restaurant? Yes, sir. I'm a kitchen manager for a movie theater around here. There's the main movie theater thing, and then upstairs we have a VIP lounge, 21 and over. I manage the kitchen there. Some people call me chef, but I'm just kind of a glorified kitchen manager. The menu is really boring, and I hate it. But, yeah, it's a retired chef, 37 years. Man, it's a long haul, dude. I've been in the business about 13 years now. Started as a dishwasher when I was 16. Started working prep when I was about 17. And then the line shortly after that. So I've been doing the cooking on some sort of professional level for about 10, 11 years. I do love it, but I can't do it forever. I watched my dad work himself real damn hard, and I'm not afraid of work. I'm not afraid of sweat, but I'm not trying to die at 62 either. By the time he was in his 40s, his knees were so bad, his back was so bad, he was going to a chiropractor every week. Whereas my dad, he did real physical work. He was a farmer, farrier, butcher. In his younger days, he was a drill sergeant in the Army in his early 20s. So, my job's a different level of physical. It's physical and mental, having to just keep tabs on everything, what people are doing, and where your orders are, where the money's going. But so back to the interview, um, I'm I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to run those numbers. It's something I'd like to learn to do. The big part of why I took this job is so I would learn how to do ordering and receiving and some of the business side of things. But I still have a lot to learn, and I also want to get back to the technical side of the job. Because we have a very basic, very simple, very boring menu at my current job, and I don't get to do anything about it. Um, so she looked over my resume. We talked about it for a while, and said, "So the hotel was, the biggest part of your career?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was, the highlight. That was a good springboard. I worked for a good chef there, and I learned a lot technically, and just, kind of had some freedom to kind of play around with things, and that's where I learned how to make sausage from scratch. Um, you know, learned some butchery there. Um, learned a lot there, but so we talked about that a bit, and um, we asked each other a few questions here and there, and so she didn't like tell me to piss off, but I think she had some things to get back to. I know how it is. She did ask me if I wanted to do a stage next week, or when I can do a stage. I told her we'd probably have to go till next week, maybe the week after. She wasn't pushy about it. She's not like, oh, well, if you can't do it now, then blah, blah, blah. She's like, let me know when you can. So she was understanding of that. Um, she was pretty chill, pretty level-headed. She made a point to say that she runs what they call a nice kitchen. None of that old school yelling and swearing, and they have some teenagers working there, like the hostesses and stuff, and so they try to keep it kind of PG in the kitchen, which, yeah, I can live with that. But this wine bar, it's been in the same family since 1962. Same location. They've done. The business itself has changed quite a bit. I was actually surprised when I found the place because Google Maps still had the old sign posted, and then so I found the location, and this was after a remodel. It's been owned by the same family since the 60s, and they take active participation in managing and running the place and making sure the building's not falling apart. It's been a long time since I've worked for a private establishment like that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go over my schedule the next couple of weeks, see when I can get in there, do a stage. I am looking forward to seeing the kitchen. I kind of peeked through the doors a little bit, like the porthole windows. Saw a lot of shiny stuff in there. I'm gonna try to catch some sleep. 12-hour shift ahead of me tonight. Everyone have a good day. Thanks for checking in, Matt. Thanks for watching for a bit. Get some sleep, man. I hear you on those 12 hours. I've been pulling a lot of those lately myself. My internal clock has been really off kilter lately. Between the seasonal change, me working doubles so often, and then having to change my schedule. Like, I had to change my Monday to a closing shift because I didn't have anybody else to do it. It was just me and one other cook. And so I had to change to a closing shift for the day. And it screwed me up because I was getting into about my 4-5 hour mark of the shift when I'm getting ready to make another coffee. And, usually when I'm working days, it's like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, early evening. But then I check my watch and it's 8, 9 p.m. Like, whoa. Just kind of messes with your head. Yeah. So I've been a bit scatterbrained lately, a little more than usual. I started watching this show on Netflix called The 90s. I just finished the second episode. Talking about the development of TV and cable networks growing in popularity. It's kind of interesting because I remember most of the 90s, but like the later half. I was born in 89. But I'm also from a very small town. I grew up out in the country where you couldn't get cable, and satellite was in its infancy, and just a wishful thinking that far out. So I grew up with like 3 channels, and 2 of them were Fox. So like even into the early 2000s, the TV stations were still playing stuff from the 90s. So I was still kind of stuck in that decade, and that culture. So I have quite a bit of familiarity with it, even though I was pretty young when it was going on. They were talking about the importance of just how crazy the OJ trial was, and how it had dominated TV for however long that trial went for. It was on when your other shows would typically be on, news and soaps and whatever else. It just dominated everything. And then that was the decade where TV stopped being so friendly, or at least started being a little more edgy. The 60s had some really cheesy shows. 70s, that was still going on, but things got a little more campy, I guess you could say. But everything was still like upbeat, 80s, still kind of the same elements. It still evolved, but something about in the 90s, they're just like, you know what we should do? We should make shows about murder and rape and other violent crimes, and then our comedies should be a little darker. We should talk about real things that happen in the real world with real adults. Not like how it had been a couple decades before of, typing Piper, what up, dog? Nice of you to stop in. I'm sitting out front, drinking some tepid coffee. Nope, that's no longer tepid. It is quite cold. Smoking some nightcap match in my Rossi 320 Author. How's that bent apple working out for you? You still smoking on it, or are you resting it? Long live the clones. Amen, brother. What was the name? What was the name of the order? Order 68. Is that what it was? Where they went to eliminate the Jedi? I don't know. I have dyscalculia. I get my numbers fucked up real bad. I think it was 68. Oh. Yeah, and then on TV, speaking of Star Wars, 70s and 80s, death to all Star Wars clones. Yeah, fuck those guys. Jackholes can't hit the broadside of a barn. Long live the original Holy Trinity. Are we talking about the original Star Wars? Because I agree. 4, 5, and 6, the originals, those were the ones worth watching. Well, Last Jedi was pretty good. Rogue One was okay. Force Awakens was pretty good. I think I actually like Force Awakens better than The Last Jedi. Because I really had no idea where they were going with it. Even the Ewok spin-offs were better than this Disney shit. Fair. Well, like, I have friends that have never seen Star Wars. And, they'd be like, yeah, I haven't had time to, start with the Phantom Menace. I'm like, no, don't. Fire! Anyways, those are not friends, those are Russian spies. Acquaintances, perhaps. Like, Russian, though? Still, are Russian spies still relevant? I mean, I'm sure they're still there with all this shit they say with Trump and whatever. Fucking El Presidente de la Carrot Top. But be like, no, skip the 1 through 3. They're shit. Like, watch 4, 5, and 6. Hell, watch 7 and 8 too. But like, not until you've absorbed all of that and understood what it is and how wonderful it is, the true essence that is Star Wars, then if you really need to satisfy your curiosity, fuck with 1, 2, and 3. They were just so bad. Like, I was excited about the first one because I was excited about there being a Star Wars movie in my lifetime, like, coming out, like, to theaters and stuff like that. Like, wow, there's a Star Wars now. Yeah, Metachlorians killed Lucas for me. Such bullshit. And why the fuck did it have to be Liam Neeson to be the Qui-Gon that would put that out in the world? Like, I loved Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. I love the character that is Qui-Gon Jinn. I will say that. I liked that element of, I just said the name, Episode 1. I thought Darth Maul was a cool villain. But, like, the pod race scene, we get it. The kid can fly. We get it. Did it have to last, like, 30 minutes? Some really cheesy lines, some really cheesy acting. Sympathy when his daughter was taken. Yeah, he he clearly made some bad choices. I mean, when you get 3 movies in and your damn kid keeps disappearing, you really have to question, is this man fit to be a father? There's some clear negligence happening here. And so yeah, episode 1 had a few parts that I didn't hate. I actually kind of liked. I was bummed that Qui-Gon died so soon. I thought he was a very likable character. But I got like 10 minutes into the second one. How is he married to a woman who's clearly a gold digger? Well, clearly. I've only seen... Oh, there go the fire trucks. Must not have been that important. Someone probably flicked a cigarette butt and caught a leaf. I used to have a neighbor like that. They called the fire department when we were barbecuing once. But I've only seen the first Taken movie, and I only watched it once, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. But with Star Wars Episode 2, I got about 10 minutes in when Obi-Wan and Anakin were like in this chase and like the little ships and flying cars in the city or whatever, jumping from one to another. Like, fuck this. Just no. 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 And then I skipped to Episode 3, which wasn't awful. I only watched it because, like, the origin story of Vader really interests me. I'm not, like, really into villain stories necessarily, but I like origin stories. I like knowing what makes people the way they are. You know, what happened in your life that makes you such a heroic person? What happened in your life to make you such a psychopath? Stuff like that interests me. So I wanted to see how they were going to tell the story of Anakin and Darth Vader. And I mean, it told the story, but it could have been told a little bit better. A lot bit better. It was pretty bad. Fell asleep. Let me see that again. I fell asleep every time I tried to watch 3. Thug life. I would wake up to Vader screaming and hated how Obi-Wan didn't throw the whiny bitch in the lava. Yeah. But he became such a cool character afterwards. Yes, they portrayed him as a serious little bitch. Which maybe Anakin was a little bitch. But, like, just maybe he could have been portrayed as a little less of a whiny bitch. Because, I mean, like, later on in the series, was he still just, like, a whiny little bitch inside of that cyborg body and crazy suit and shit? Like, Anakin was a date rapist. Jesus. I got nothing for that one, buddy. I got nothing for that one. Rape culture. Anakin was a character of rape culture. God, I'd love to fucking have that theory thrown at my girlfriend's roommate. I like my girlfriend's roommate, but she's very feminist, social justice warrior. Do you really think Padme consented to marry him? I wouldn't say well, I think she consented, but it was in a very underhanded manner. Anakin was very persistent in his pursuit of her, but in like a creepy way. Not of like, maybe if I bring her enough flowers and write her enough sonnets, she'll fall in love with me. It's, if I show her how crazy, strong, impressive I am, she will love me and adore me, and we will rule the universe together. Yes, wouldn't that be nice? This is the husband you're looking for. Let me levitate an apple. Yeah, I think it was, it wasn't a woo as much as it was a, I think she just got tired of it. She's like, well, fuck it. Fine, creepy man who was once a little boy on a desert planet building robots. Yes, fine. I will fucking marry you. Just stop with the nonsense, please. I think he was so angry afterwards, after her death, because I think he really only got to wax that ass once, that led to the conception of Luke and Leia. I think that's why he was so bitter. That's why. He only got to bust that one solid nut. Alpha fucks and beta bucks. He was a pent-up beta. He was fucking pent up something. But he eventually became a very cool character. I mean, he's my favorite Star Wars character. Even though you're not supposed to like the dark side, I find him the most interesting. I mean, you know, Yoda's cool, and I mean, they're all cool and interesting in their own way, but Darth being like half man, half robot, and you know, he had interesting motives to where he wasn't really. You know, Yoda was a tripod. Slap my knob, you must. Cut the balls. Yes. I thought that. So. I'm having way too many funny mental images right now. Kind of disturbing ones, but still funny. just, just picturing Yoda dropping his robe and just seeing this wrinkled green knob just hanging. Oh, I didn't need that. Why'd you put that evil on me? Oh, Jesus. Take much force it will. Yes. What was up with the spinning fight scene? Spinning fight scene. I'm guessing you're referring to... Are you referring to the battle with Darth Maul in Episode 1? Slap you with my dick, I will. Bruce Chin you will leave with. Pull out, I don't. Spinning fight scene. I'm just gonna go until you confirm it. I'm guessing you're referring to the fight with Darth Maul in Episode 1. And I don't know, man. Like a big cream pie. A fuzzy one at that. No, he wasn't fuzzy. He was wrinkly and hairy. Yoda fighting in Episode 3. Oh, I don't remember that very well. Because I was quite distracted when I was watching Episode 3. Because I really was just waiting to get to, like, why Anakin became Vader. Or how, rather. Like, I was really waiting for the what the fuck happened to, nobody should remember that. I was waiting for the big climax of the turning point, to where he's like, oh well, fuck, I'm evil and I'm gonna be a robot now, or whatever. So I paid attention to the death of Padme and the fight with Obi-Wan and the falling in lava. Anakin Skywalker, worst floor is lava competitor in the history of ever. Floor is lava! The floor is lava! My limbs are burning away! Yeah, so I don't remember that fight scene, but I do remember in like some of the Star Wars games, like Star Wars Battlefront 2. I like the original better, but Battlefront 2 is cool because after they could have replaced Padme's death with Black Swan, it would have made more sense. I haven't seen Black Swan yet either. But I get the reference. Shit. Oh, you're railroading me hard here, dude. That sounded wrong. Fuck. Oh yeah, so Battlefront 2. If you're kicking enough ass, you build up enough stats, you get to play as the hero for your side. At least she gets it on with a girl instead of Vader. Little difference though. Oh, little GOG, huh? I'll give that a look. But yeah, Battlefront 2, you kick enough ass, you get to play the hero of your side. So if you're playing as the Empire and you're kicking enough ass as a stormtrooper, you get the option to play as like Vader. Or if you're playing for the Rebellion, kicking enough ass, you get to play as Obi-Wan or Yoda. And in the game, Yoda's doing all these jumping around, spinny things, and I don't get it. I guess they're just like, yeah, that's how he uses the Force in fights with being such small stature. But I would think that, like, to make up for his small stature. Maybe he would just have like stronger kinetic powers, or maybe he could like shield a little bit better, or you know, roll between an enemy's legs and then slash them. I don't know. I don't get the whole jumping up in circles like Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, I didn't get that either. How about that, back in episode 1, that communicator radio thing that Qui-Gon Jinn is carrying around? It was a holder for a Gillette ladies razor. With the NC-17 version had Yoda skull fucking stormtroopers. I'm done with you, man. Again, with the mental images, I'm not sure I needed. Or maybe I didn't know I needed them. Yes. 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 Oh my God. What are you up today, man? Besides watching me smoke and laugh at all your goofy shit. Cleaning some pipes, are ya? Maintaining some typewriters. Changing some ribbons. With this weird Yoda riding around on Luke's back. Yeah. But part of his training it was. Old and decrepit was he? Need a lift, I do. Just came home from Zoe's story time. Right on. Eating lunch. Cool. Oh, story time. That takes me back to over the summer. I had a family reunion back in my hometown, and because we're a bunch of Midwest country bumpkins, we hosted this at the town library, and I think you'll appreciate this. They have built onto it since, so there's still like the main brick area of the library, the original shell of the building, you could say. They took out part of a wall and then built onto it, so that's where all the books and everything are now. That's where everything's held. But now what used to be the library is kind of a little common area where they let country-ass people like us rent it and hold family reunions, or I think they've had like classes and things there. And so while we're in that area where we were all set up eating and stuff is where the books used to be. And then there's this little room in the corner. I saw some kid stuff in there. I'm like, well, what's going on in there? And there are like kids' chairs and tables and things like that. And it was this little room where when I went to school there when I was a little kid, we'd sit down there and for story time. Because I went to school in my hometown from kindergarten to 4th grade. And it's about a 5-minute walk from the school to the library. So we'd go there fairly regularly, I think about once a week. And sit down in a little circle, cross-legged, and have stories read to us, or we'd do a read-along kind of thing. It was crazy to go back like that. The hours the walls were painted like Alice in Wonderland. Cool. Yeah, that one's very boring. Like a weird yellowish paint job on the inside, like a yellowish white. The new main library was closed because I believe this was on a Sunday. It's trippy, like the painter was on acid. Well, he fucking should have been. If he's painting Alice in Wonderland in a library, hell yeah. Eat some taps. Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way to paint Alice in Wonderland is stoned out of your gourd or tripping or something. Whatever the kids these days are doing. I get interesting urges to like draw and write when I'm at a certain point of exhaustion. But I have to jump on it like right then and there. Like if I have ideas for a sketch, which I'm not really an artist. Occasionally I get inspiration, and I've drawn a few cool things here and there. But like I like to write. It's something I would like to do later in life. So I don't really have time for it now. Can't write when I'm tired. Yeah, it's a really weird state of tired, and I never heard of it working for anyone else until I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast where he had this guy on where he goes to bed early and he wakes up really early, like wakes up at like 5 in the morning, and he just enough energy to enjoy a drink and maintain a buzz. Okay. Yeah, if I'm buzzed to a certain extent, I can write well. But this guy on the podcast was said he gets up really early, starts his coffee maker, and then he starts to write. Before he's awake, before he's aware of everything going on around him, he jumps back into his little universe he's created and just keeps writing. I found that interesting. Because there are certain, like if I'm physically exhausted, physically, mentally exhausted completely, like if I get off work of a double, there's no fucking way I'm going to write anything. I'm just done. I want to drink and go to bed. The point isn't to write well, but to have something on the paper for when you are sober. Fair enough. I have a couple of problems when I try to write because I have done, I have several stories and storylines in my head, even to the point where I've like changed things and I've taken plot points from one and just put it into the other. I'm very critical of what I do to the point where I've written things to almost completion and then just been like, this is dumb, and fucking thrown away the notebook or deleted the file from my laptop because I'm very critical of everything I do. And also, a lot of people say, well, you just write and you edit later. Well, I'm so critical of myself when I'm building a sentence or a paragraph, it's hard for me to make any progress because I'm sitting there saying, no, that's fucking dumb. Don't say it like that. Say it like this. Or, you know, I'm just always, um, always criticizing and editing everything I'm doing. My first book was a collection of short stories that I tied together. Yeah, I'm thinking of going that route. Because just to say I'm gonna write a book is crazy. Like that is a commitment of organization and um, time. Just to say you're gonna write an entire book, you gotta be locked down. Never edit while you write. Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm trying to just let myself go with it. Just go with the flow and then come back to it later. But again, I'm just so fucking critical. You'll hate yourself and writing. Yeah, that's just it. I do hate myself a little bit. Um, which it's great for fueling success in my professional career. Is just always think what you're doing. Sorry, I just had a phone call that I didn't want to answer because I don't know who it was. Um, if when you cook, save the first draft for yourself, rewrite for your friends. Yeah, I'm planning on doing that. But yeah, I mean, it's hating yourself works well when you're cooking because you're like, if you think that everything you're doing right now is shit, then you're just gonna push yourself to do something better. Um, or at least when I actually felt energetic enough mentally and physically to actually cook at home, not just do my secretary and babysitting bullshit at my current job, but that's neither here nor there. Um, first draft for yourself, second draft for your friends, third draft for everyone else. Yeah, good call. I've considered that. That's something I'm working on. Um, of just letting the words fly and coming back to it later. Also, organization is a problem for me, not only with like the story itself, but just how I'm writing it. I have a strange collection of notebooks, and I still have some of them going back to when I was in high school, to where I tell myself I'm going to set this notebook aside for work. I'm going to set this notebook aside for other things I have to do, and then this notebook is for anything I'm going to write, any creative stuff. Well, the thing is about any sort of creative inspiration is you can't control when it strikes you. So I was at work the day before yesterday, and I had a new concept strike me of like, you know what if I like put the pause button on these things, and what if I did this kind of story? And I just started writing on one of my notepads, and like this could be fun, you know. And I felt really, really inspired, and I started writing while it was slow, and then it picked up a little bit, and then I had to close, and then I lost it. So I have that bit. What is up with composition notebooks no longer sewing the binding together? Yeah, no shit. Or like having anything to hold them together at all. Like Chef Joe, my predecessor, he always carried one that he would make notes in, and he had this really interesting coffee mug. This guy was a coffee nut, and his preferred brewing method was the pour over. So he would make notes of his grind setting. If he changed any sort of timing, um, if he let his water get 2 degrees higher or 2 degrees lower, or if he ground any finer or more coarse, if he changed anything in the time of the pour over itself, or how long he would let it rest to what temperature before he took his first sip. I mean, it was like looking in a fucking chemist book. Um, but he had one of those that was just real tattered and dog-eared and well-worn. It must have been an older one or something, because then I'm like, you know what, I think I'm going to carry one. It was more sturdy than the kind of notebook I was carrying around at the time. And that thing started falling apart quick. Like, just trying to start, front to back. Before you even get into the middle of the book, the damn front cover's about to fall off. Cooking is chemistry. Yeah, it is. But that's what I like about savory stuff. A pinch is not a measurement. No shit. But that's... Fuck off, Midnight Star Tours. I'm trying to shoot a video here. But that's the interesting thing about where the human element comes in, because that's why I like more savory cooking, if you will. I don't bake much, because baking is fucking chemistry. That is science, People that are really on it, they're doing measurements by weight, not by volume, which I'll come back to that in a minute. Measurement. I have an interesting thought on that. That's the interesting thing about, like, if you're messing with, like, different sauces or marinades, or, you're making something that's just not quite working the way you want it to, you can improvise. Just like, let's say you're making a sauce or a soup or something, just pulling something out of my ass here. Let's say when you started with your roux in the beginning, and then you added the rest of your liquid, it's too thin. Well, no big deal. You can just make another small batch of roux and stir that in, or you can make a cornstarch slurry and stir that in, and boom, it's thick. Whereas when you're baking bread, if you didn't get a proper amount of leavening agent in there, and your bread starts to rise and then it falls and bakes up that way, there's no going back. It's done. 15% remaining on battery. This is only going to be going for a few more minutes, I suppose. But once you're baking, you have to be precise, because once it falls and bakes up that way, it's stuck there. Country Squire talked about blending tobacco and using weight instead of portions. Yeah, I plan on getting a scale for doing some bread, and also I want to experiment with blending tobaccos too. And yes, weight would be the only sensible way to do it. I mean, really. Especially with tobacco, you get into different cuts, different moisture levels. There are so many factors that could affect the volume per scoop or cup or whatever, which is why I have this thing going on at work of why, the cooks are like, well, why doesn't our cookie dough come out like yours? Like, well, because you don't know how to measure flour. I've tried to show you. And yes, we use the cup system, but it's still not foolproof, Like, if you bake it all and you use the cup system, it's fill your scoop, scrape the top. That's a cup. You don't scoop, pack, then you get too much, right? You don't just scoop it up and then leave it piling either, because that's not a measurement. But the interesting thing about cup measurement is that was standardized. I want to say it was Franny Farmer. I'm pretty sure she is the one, if not her, a woman before her. I learned this in this book called Consider the Fork. Unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. I gave that to Joe when he moved. But I'm pretty sure it was Franny Farmer that started pushing for the cup system, because she wanted to make things more approachable and more standardized to just improve the efficiency of the home cook. And nowhere else but America really does that. It's kind of how, it's like us not wanting to do the metric system. Just like, nah, we're America. We do feet. Fuck your math measurements. We do miles per hour, none of them kilometers. I just found the Franny Farmer cookbook last week. Yeah, I have a copy. it's cool. I use it for referencing, like when I'm trying to get back to like home cooking ideas of if maybe I'm drawing a blank. Like there's some good basic dough recipes in there. Like a while back, I said I was gonna make a quiche just for fun, and there was a nice basic pie dough recipe in there. Um, it's great for the staples of just basic things, um, which that's what she was trying to do. Is she was just trying to help women make it easier to feed their families or themselves or whatever. Just uh, put a collection of things um, to make it easier, and maybe have more edible food, so maybe they got slapped around a little less. Like, you ever see that movie Coal Miner's Daughter, based on Loretta Lynn, where uh, it was shortly after she and Doolittle got married, and he comes home from work, takes a scoop of dinner or a pie or something, spits it out, throws it out to the dog because she used salt instead of sugar. Back in for any Farmer's Day, that probably would have earned you a solid slap. I don't condone domestic violence. Uh-oh, chat no longer working? I don't know. Did you try to send a message that didn't go through? I don't know. I know my battery's getting low. I'm down to 11%. I know that. And I know I've said there were no good recipes for squirrel. Hey, that's funny you say that. The first thing I learned to cook as like an entire thing was my dad showed me how to stew squirrel. Um, when I had finally graduated from learning how to cook a hamburger, um, we'd been hunting, and it might have been when I went out by myself, because that's just how I grew up. But it could have been me. It could have been me and my dad. I don't remember, but one of us came home with a bunch of squirrels, and we'd skinned them. And I'm like, "Well, what are you gonna do with them now?" Dad's like, "Well, I'm gonna teach you how to make stew." What really freaked people out was when I brought some to the school for lunch. That's some good home cooking there. Stew. Very basic. I actually made some with girlfriends last night. And she's got, she's from a small town in Missouri. And her granddad, affectionately known as Pappy. Pappy raises cattle, and Pappy has a cow butchered uh, probably about once a year, and then sends her off with a bunch of meat when her mom visits. And so, like, the difference between that beef that comes from an actual cow raised in a field instead of the walking meat products, that's kind of what I call them, how we treat cattle now. The taste is just, it's crazy. It takes me back to being a kid, because that's the meat I grew up eating. The stuff that was raised by a farmer out in the open air. But yeah, I made a stew and mashed potatoes last night. I'm also I'm looking into similar dishes from from around the world. Something I think I'm gonna make, especially like European stuff, European English stuff. I was watching a show on Netflix called Still Game, Like I'm in the second season of it. And they were talking about this dish called mince and tatties. Uh-oh. Typing Piper's gone. The king is dead. Long live the king. Well, I'm going to finish this up here in a second. Mince and tatties is basically minced ground beef and vegetables and potatoes. Kind of like a shepherd's pie without a crust. Well, Typing Piper has abandoned me. My battery's dying. I'm getting a little chilly, and my bowl's about burnt out, so I'm out of here. Catch y'all later.